Thank you for being a friend, for traveling down that road and coming back again to Lakeland Community College. My heart is true. I will be your friend and your confidant. And if you threw a party, which they do every year for the Lakeland Woman Show, except for this year, and invited everyone you knew, you would see that the biggest present would be from me, and the card addressed on it would be to you, and it would say, thank you for being a friend, and thank you for joining me for Living Figuratively for our 50th golden anniversary episode. Can you believe it? We've been here 50 weeks, 50 consecutive weeks since COVID started. So thank you for joining me. Tonight's episode is at Lakeland Community College for the From Woman 14 show. Last week we had the 2D episode. This week, we have the 3D episode where I'll be talking about the 3D sculpture and assemblages. Now I'm going to take this off because, like the old people say, I can't see a goddamn thing with these things on. So I'm going to put these down. And the sculpture in this show is absolutely beautiful and also 3D, so I don't need 3D glasses to see it. Welcome to Living Figuratively. This is the show that asks the question, and we're keeping on asking the question for 50 episodes. Why not fill your home with the fascinating faces and figures of people that you don't even know? Why not fill your home with figurative art? Each week, I show you work from my collection, work of my own, or I take the show out on the road. Today, we're taking the show out on the road to Lakeland College for From Woman 14. And let's get started right now. Right behind me is this beautiful 3D piece by Teresa Yondo. It's actually a multi-part piece. I didn't count the pieces, but there's probably about 35 individual pieces on here. And one of the things that's amazing about this particular piece, like zoom in on it, it's sea life. It's lily pads, but it's also ceramics. And one of the beautiful things about it is that it's arranged in a very organic, natural kind of way. So like it takes you outside of your box of what you can put on your wall in your house. Wall art doesn't have to be a rectangle. I mean, imagine this in a beach house where you can sort of make it this organic shape for an area you want to fill, or like an odd area that you want to fill. It's really, really gorgeous. It is called Evolving Earthly Objects, lily pads, pools, orbs, and spheres. So that's a beautiful work. Uplifting. Over here, I'm going to show you this one real quick by Patricia Hecker, also life-affirming, and it's called Good Karma Beads. And it has all these little, positive life affirmation messages on it. It's sold individually, so you can get one string of these as a friend for somebody who's, a present for somebody who's going through a lot of stuff. My favorite quote on here is, she needed a hero. It's this one right here. She needed a hero, so that is what she became. So this one's awesome. Let's come on over here. I'm going to show you this beautiful bronze sculpture by Lisa Kenyon. You may remember her work. She got an award winner at the New Masters show at Ursuline a few months back when we went to go see that. And I told you about her bronze process. She owns the Studio Foundry bronze casting place in Foundry in Cleveland. And she has this innovative bronze casting process where she'll make these individual tendrils out of wax and then shape them into, leaves and ferns like what she has here, and then individually hand cast them. So this is a unique bronze sculpture that it's one of a kind because the mold is created bit by bit, and so you can't just pour another mold. So it's beautiful. It's called Habitat, and love that one. Over here we have Teresa Wooden, who has these beautiful, very whimsical and elegant little natural animals on pots. essentially. And some of the bigger pots, she's got these beautiful scratch board looking, I'm not sure what the process is, for scratching in these drawings into the ceramics. It's really amazing. There's drawings on the ceramics. And this one right here has the drawing that goes all the way around it. And then over here, these little creatures, she's got their totems, which what a totem is, it's a sacred relic of a bunch of objects, essentially, that represent a family or a grouping. And so she's got these little elegant little animals on top of them, and you know they're just beautiful, and they're very priced very reasonably. You know, you could get all three, you could get the jars. It's gorgeous pieces. So those were all fun and maybe a little bit light and whimsical and positive. I'm going to bring things down a little bit because the Women's Show, there's a lot of activism in it. Right here, the top pieces are from Kimberly Chapman's Bridal Women series. And basically, I believe you've seen these before at the New Masters show, where I told you to Google what a scold's bridal is. I didn't go into it because, you know, it's pretty gruesome. I'm going to go into it here. So, basically what a scold's bridal is a horrible medieval torture item that if you had a really bad husband and you know, were maybe a mouthy woman or a woman that spoke her mind too much or was, you know, perceived as a nag, he might put you into a scold's bridle. It was like a torture instrument that husbands could use, kind of like the, you know, chastity belts, where this went over your head and then there was a little piece of metal that stuck inside it that went into your mouth. And I've got a picture, also pretty gruesome, of somebody wearing it. When that piece goes into your mouth, you can't close your mouth, you can't talk, you can't really eat, you can't really do much of anything, but it can fester and be very uncomfortable and be very torturous and potentially get infected depending on how long he keeps you in it. So it's a horrible medieval torture device meant to silence women. The way that Kimberly Chapman has interpreted it is with she's brought it into the 21st century, and she's named these pieces other ways that women have been silenced, you know, since the scold's bridle is, you know, fortunately not really a thing anymore. This one over here is called Butting Head Bertha, and another one is called Faint of Heart Helen. And basically, those are sort of derogatory terms that are assigned to women to shut them up. You know, Butting Head Bertha, like, oh, don't take her seriously, she always butts heads with everybody. Faint of Heart Helen, oh, let's not ask her what she thinks because, you know, she's too faint of heart, she's not strong enough to make big decisions. And those kind of things have been used to silence women also. And the way that she interprets it is with different glazes. So the body and the delicate skin is with you know, a fine porcelain, you know, white glaze, and then the metallic torture instrument that's on her head has the dark glaze on it, and it's really, you know, very poignant, powerful pieces. Coming down, we've got another poignant, powerful piece, Laura Lee Hudson. And Laura Lee Hudson, you may remember her. She actually posed for my Chicks with Balls project. She was the last woman to pose for Chicks with Balls about a year ago. Her portrait was Laura Lee, Balls of Silver, Nerves of Steel, and she's holding one of her silver sculptures that she made. She's also on the Love Athena triptych. She's one of the women on there, and she's holding a enlarged version of one of the silver sculptures that she made. So you may want to go back and look at that. This piece right here, she, in addition to being a really good sport and an awesome person, she's an even better artist. This piece right here, it's called The Sorrowful Mysteries COVID Rosary. And she says that while she herself is not Catholic, she does realize the strength and the comfort and the meditative quality of having a rosary type thing, having like an object that you can, you know, touch in sort of a meditative, soothing kind of a way. And this rosary essentially it's about COVID. There's coffins, there's the little spikes that are shown on the COVID cell that you see everywhere. And so it's a beautiful piece. Even more beautiful, I think, this beautiful piece is called Commit Seed Vault. And basically, this is a seed vault that she's made, and it basically honors the bees that are going extinct and that we're losing, and that is so devastating to our, to nature, to the growth of plants, to our very existence, because the bees pollinate things that allows fruits and flowers to grow and plants to grow. So it's a devastating thing to lose the bees, big time. And this piece, it's very painstakingly made. First of all, it's a seed vault, which honors the seeds of life, essentially. The way that she did it, and I followed her on Facebook while she was creating this piece, which took her several months to make. It's a hand-formed copper vessel, and then she has this brass drawing on it, and I call it a drawing because she drew it on a sheet of brass and then painstakingly cut out every single little leaf and piece and drip and spike on the leaves with a delicate jewel saw. So like she cut that drawing out of metal and then applied it to the copper body and then soldered it on. Inside it, it's got sort of a beehive feel to it, and that's where also the seed containers are. But that's not all. All right, the lid, just the lid, is a cloisonné lid. And the process of cloisonné, which I think I'm pronouncing it not quite right, but it's basically you have these thin strips of silver or gold wire that you form into a drawing. And then you've made these little walls out of these strips of thin wire, and you fill in the little compartments that you've made with these walls with colored glass or enamel or something that will melt in a kiln. You put it in the kiln, and it creates this stained glass effect, this sort of hefty stained glass effect. And that's what cloisonné is. And she's done that for the lid, and then there's this extra lid here which has these beautiful little silver bees on it. So I'm totally in love with this piece. It's really just a very elegant, classic, medieval thing that honors life, essentially. So let's go inside now, because as you might remember, at Lakeland College, we have the outside gallery and then the inside gallery. I'm passing real quick by Annie Peters' Crone of Wisdom, which I have talked about last week and I absolutely love. We'll see another work of hers a little bit later in the show. These pieces over here are by Jenny Mendez, and they are all three ceramic pieces with the same kind of drawing sensibility that her paintings had, which you saw last week. They're illustrative but iconic, and they've got this fairy tale quality to them too. One of the things, I brought my friend Pam here just yesterday. Yeah, it was yesterday. I brought her, and she noticed, I didn't even notice this, but there's this motif of this deer animal head is in all three of them in different places. There's the little fox who looks a little bit like a deer there, and then the merging of the different characters. And I would love to, these are so beautiful, I would love to bring them to a creative writing class and let people illustrate write the story or the mythology or the legend behind each one of these, because I don't believe they refer to specific legends. I think she's made up the images to be intriguing and interesting, and the story is for you to determine. Over here, we have, this is one is called by Lisa Rushman, called Lilith Escaped from Eden. And this one is based on an actual story that I know quite well from my Goddess Project. I have not yet interpreted it, but I will tell you the story because I find it fascinating. So, in the Judeo-Christian Bible, we all know about Adam and Eve. Before Eve, in the Apocrypha behind the Bible, Adam had a first wife. His first wife was Lilith. And apparently Lilith was made as an equal to Adam. We're not made from his rib. She was an equal. And apparently, because she was an equal, she had a mind of her own. She was very headstrong, and they argued. And it wasn't a very, amicable marriage. So Lilith decided to leave. She left the Garden of Eden. She didn't have to eat an apple or a snake or anything like that. She just left. So God wanted her back. God sent the angels to go after her. She would not come back. She was done. She was done with Adam. So as time wore on, Lilith basically got written out of the Bible because, as they invented Eve, and as Eve became the first wife of Adam and the first mortal woman made, Lilith got written out of the Bible. But in the Apocrypha and the way that the sub-stories have gone, Lilith became cast as this demon character who flies through the air and kills babies. So, here again, it's the same old story. When a woman seeks her own identity, is headstrong and stands up for herself, she gets cast as a demon. So that's, one of the myths that I'm planning on busting. And Lisa Rushman has done a gorgeous job of it. Come look inside this apple. There is a whole little delicious world inside this apple that she's created. And the apple itself is a beautiful work of art. She's got, it's a mosaic pattern with all kinds of, planetary looking things. And it's really, really just a very intriguing, gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous piece. So next one here, we'll start close. Deborah Silver, I'm covering fiber in 3D episode. So Deborah Silver has invented this, or has perfected this process of split shed weaving, where basically she's got an image here that up close looks like an abstract, but when you pull away from it, a face emerges. So it's figurative once you pull away from it. And she's gone further than just making it, just figurative. Her work can be described, she's self-described it as lost in translation. She is merging contemporary human images with images from ancient and lost cultures, many of which did not have a written language. And this one is called Wari Hillary, W-A-R-I, Wari, based on the Wari culture of Peru. So about 1,000 years ago, from the years 500 to 1000 AD, the Wari culture existed in Peru. It's a group of people that existed for 500 years. I mean, I don't know if our culture is going to exist for 500 years, but their culture existed for 500 years, and they were a major producer of textiles. And the reason we know this is because they have these beautiful burial places where they buried people with their textiles, so we have evidence of that. Also, they buried vessels and things like that. So we have a lot of remnants of their culture in pretty, identifiable, nice conditions. So Deb Silver has merged patterns from their culture with this contemporary human image. And the person in this one is actually somebody that she knows who has, because of her disabilities, been very isolated during COVID. And the second reading where her strength and resilience is shining through the method of the split shed weaving. It's really just a beautiful merging of cultures, past and present. It's quite lovely. And if you are interested in the split shed weaving process, which I couldn't even begin to describe it, Deb is an expert on it, and on her website, deborahsilverstudio.com, I believe it is. She's got a book that she's written all about it, and it's very highly acclaimed. So if you're interested in it, that's your go-to person for it. Moving along to another example of fiber, we've got these gorgeous pieces by Sandy Schellenberger. And Sandy Schellenberger also posed for me for my Chicks with Balls project. She was the one who was Fierce the quilt maker with the boxing gloves. Her weaving process here, this is a, it's not weaving process, it's a quilting process. With fine art quilts, the distinction between a fine art quilt and a regular quilt, is that fine art quilts, you make your own pattern, you make your own fabric, you dye your own fabric, you hand sew it. You could machine sew it too, you know, but the whole thing is your invention. Whereas the traditional quilt process, where maybe, you know, your non-fine artist grandma might be making a quilt, there's a pattern, and she cuts out things according to somebody else's pattern and assembles them according to somebody else's pattern. Maybe she should pick her own fabrics, but maybe doesn't create her own fabrics. Sandy Schellenberger creates her own fabrics. Many of these, the process, it's a negative process where she starts out with a piece of black fabric, and it's the shibori process, she said, where she uses a discharge process to pull out the dye and pull away the dye in the areas that she wants it to. And then she cuts it up and arranges it and sews it. It's machine sewn, and you know, she's got a Nautilus pattern, which is part of the, you know, on the title, because it's Shifting Sands, Sapphire Skies, and Midnight Moon. She's also got some indigo over dye on here, and you may remember indigo from the About Body, About Face show back at the Artist Archives, where Tony Williams, uses a lot of indigo in his process, his quilting and fiber process. So come on, we're going through 3D. We're just passing through the 2D because we went through that last week. Wait, you know what? I forgot to show you Jody Walsh's piece. Let's skip on back over here. I don't want to miss this one. Jody Walsh's gorgeous piece right here around the corner. Jody Walsh is a sculptor, a ceramicist, who has invented her own process. It's called Oratami Nendo. Oratami Nendo, which is basically a folding of clay process that she invented and perfected, and she named it Oratami Nendo, and it's, you know, copyrighted under her. When I Googled her, when I Googled the term Oratami Nendo, she was the only one that came up, and I thought, oh, did she invent it? And sure enough, she did. It's basically a very painstaking clay process where you roll out thin sheets of clay and you fold them and form them at just the right time. If you do it too early and it's too wet, then they buckle in on themselves. If you do it too late, then they crack and break. So it's timing, it's humidity in the room, and you know, it's a very painstaking process. She's put together this gorgeous piece, which to me has figurative lines. It's like a drawing in the air. It's got these gorgeous lines, and I cannot even imagine how this was shipped from Texas, because she lives in Texas, to Lakeland Community College. She must have shipped it in this amazing, you know, packaging where it didn't get tangled. I totally remember a time I was picking up like 10 balloons, put them in my back seat, and had to drive 5 minutes, and they were already tangled by the time I was home. So, you know, it just makes this gorgeous wall hanging there that makes a nice counterpoint to the 3D piece, or to the 2D pieces. And Mary has actually, most of the artists in this show, all their work is clustered in one place. With Jody Walsh's work, Mary has done something interesting where she peppers it throughout the whole exhibit. Mostly, I believe, because they make such nice counterpoints to the two-dimensional stuff. And right here is another example of how they made this beautiful counterpoint to Marilyn Soleil's work. So this is also her Oratami Nendo process, and she's folded the clay into these beautiful cubes, and every single one of them is completely different. Some of them are open, some of them are closed. They're just beautifully arranged, and each one of those I think is on the wall with a nail or a sticker. But the black and white of it is such a perfect counterpoint for Marilyn Soleil's drawings that are right on the, you know, right to the two sides of it. So Jody Walsh's work is, you know, stunning and serves a beautiful purpose within the context of this show and potentially in your home, because this is another one like Teresa Yando's where you can arrange it as you need it, and wall art doesn't have to be all rectangles. So follow me over here. We're going to come into the room with a lot of social and political import. This piece right here by Gwen Waite. Gwen Waite, you probably remember her work from the Group 10 Gallery show. She got Best in Show, and she was also in the New Masters show. In the New Masters show, she addressed the same thing that she's addressing in this piece. It's her Asian heritage, which gets all kinds of cliches and judgment and assumptions. The ice pick is a common motif in her work. This piece right here is all about the Chinese fortune cookie cliche, where you read the fortune cookie and whatever it says, the next words are in bed. And it's, you know, it's hysterical and everybody laughs because you've got things like, you know, give the world the best you have and the best will come back to you in bed. So, you know, but it gets tiresome too, the cliches. And she's got this little kitsch Asian character, which basically represents how, you know, American culture looks on Asian people maybe as like cute and sort of doll-like. And then she's got the shoehorns, which to me says, you know, trying to shoehorn into a different culture, potentially. So, you know, this one has a lot of political statement kind of a thing. Let's go over here. We're going to keep going with the political statements. Another one of Gwen Waite's pieces, this one is called Relax and Wash Your Hands. This piece is all about COVID and how it has affected us over the past year, because it was just about a year ago, right around now, that things just shut down. And back then it was like, wash your hands everywhere, wash your hands now, wash your hands before you do this. So this whole thing is about washing your hands. The whole piece has a feel like a highway gas station restroom where, you know, you don't know if you come out cleaner after washing your hands there, or if you're maybe dirtier after you've washed your hands there. The bedpan it says relax on the bedpan, which is, you know, how do you relax on a bedpan? It's you're in bed, you know, potentially in the hospital with COVID and you can't get out of bed. There's this lung-like bees wasp nest in the toilet part of the bedpan, which to me looks kind of like a dried up old lung, you know, which COVID attacks your lungs. And perhaps the most poignant aspect of this whole piece is all the little bars of soap, which she spent months and months collecting from friends too, these sort of half-used bars of soap. Each one contains an obituary of somebody in her town or in her newspaper, her local newspaper, who has died of COVID. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. You know, I mean, over 500,000 people have died of COVID. If we created something where every single one of them got a bar of soap, and their obituary was on that bar of soap, and we lined up 500,000 bars of soap end to end, it would span the length of 400 football fields. We calculated that this afternoon, just to drive the point home, because, you know, what's here is just the tiniest, like one area, tip of the iceberg. So while we're heading down the road, we're going to bring you down even more a little bit. This piece right here by Annie Peters. Annie Peters is the one who did the wisdom, the Crone of Wisdom, which is a very beautiful, uplifting piece. This is also a very beautiful piece, but it's very scary. It's called Burned Bride. And it basically, even if you don't know the history or the story behind it, when you look at it, when I look at it, I see the people that were burned in the town of Pompeii. You know, the Pompeii volcano that happened several thousand years ago. This is a burned bride, where in certain areas of Southeast Asian countries, the custom, or you know, whatever hideous custom of bride burning continues. And what it essentially is, girls, young girls, like as young as 12 and 13, are literally sold into marriage. So they bring a dowry with them. So like, you know, they might bring a dowry with a certain amount of money and items with them. If the family that has basically bought this girl or been paid to take this girl wants more money, or maybe she turns out to be more of a problem, or she, you know, they just want to ask for more money, and the family, the girl's family, doesn't want to or isn't able to pay them the money, they might kill the girl or torture the girl. And one of the ways, you know, ritualistically, that and honor-killingly, inexplicably, they might throw kerosene on her and light her on fire. And many women do not survive that. The women that do survive it get extremely, you know, horribly disfigured, but many of them die. And so Annie Peters has paid tribute to that with this tiny, like it's a child-sized burned body, burned beyond recognition, and yet there's this face, you know, charred face peeking through with the jewels on it, where literally, even in this horrible, hideous death, the young girl who has been burned to death is still expected to be beautiful and dignified with these jewels. So it's a very, you know, very scary piece, but you know, beautiful and poignant. But we're going to finish on an uplifting note. Here is Susan Shy's piece, which has the crazy title of Joe Mala, 8 of Pyrex Cups in the Kitchen Tarot. And this piece, basically, Susan Shy is an activist of the highest order, and she's not taking any chances. So in her piece, not only is she drawing the images and creating a visual piece of activism, she's not taking any chances, she's writing all about it in there too. She writes quite a bit. When I asked her for a artist statement about this piece, because it's so statement-y, her statement was 15 pages. She's got all kinds of positive, you know, let's hope for the future images of empowered women who are now in positions of power. Like, for instance, you know, Kamala Harris. We've got Susan Rice. We've got women from history. We've got Eleanor Roosevelt, Shirley Chisholm, Hillary Clinton. We've got Janet Yellen. We've got Marcia Fudge, our very own Marcia Fudge here in Cleveland, Ohio, who is now head of housing and urban development. We've got, Kamala Harris, and Joe Biden is the only man in the middle, and she, you know, gives him a position of honor because we are setting our hopes, you know, that the next 4 years is going to be better than the last 4 years. And she's also, one of the things that's wonderful about this, you can sit in front of this and basically read it with your laptop, and that encourages, you know, so that you can look up the different people that she's talking about. Like, one of the people on here, at the very top as sort of this guardian angel, is Ida B. Wells. Ida B. Wells, I had heard that name in the civil rights movement and stuff, but I never really knew who she was. So in seeing her in Susan Shy's quilt, I looked her up. And she was an amazing pioneer of the civil rights movement. She was born into chattel slavery. She was freed at the age of 16 because of the Emancipation Proclamation. And after that, she went on to become a teacher, a journalist. She was one of the founders of the NAACP. And she put herself into grave danger with her journalism. She wrote all about the lynchings that were still going on, that were going on in the aftermath of the Civil War. I mean, just in the decade after the Civil War, there were 2,000 lynchings in the South of black people. And basically, that means that every day and a half, there was a lynching. That's what that translates out to. That, I mean, so she put herself into grave danger by writing about that. She put together a pamphlet called Southern Horrors that she distributed widely, and it called attention to that. And so, you know, she was an amazing, amazing figure that I'm glad that Susan Scheib introduced me to. Now, the whole quilt has a very cryptic name. So why is it called 8 of Pyrex Cups? The Joe Mala part, yes, we know it's a portmanteau of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. The 8 of Pyrex Cups, however, Susan Scheib has been, since 1998, putting together, doing a very, very long-term project where she creates a quilt for every single card in the tarot card deck. There are 78 cards in the tarot card deck. There are 4 suits in the tarot card deck. It's wands, which represent fire, swords, which represent air. It is pentacles, which is the pentagram shape, that star shape that you see, you know, etched into whatever, whenever they have movies about witchcraft, they've always got one of those, and also in the Da Vinci Code, which that one represents the earth. And then cups, which represent water, I assume because cups hold water. The cups also represent love, you know, your cup overflowing with love and healing and, you know, positive things like that. So what Susan Scheib has done is she's made a deck of, you know, her quilt project where it's a deck of kitchen tarot cards. And I'm assuming, because she's a feminist and because she's an activist, that the word kitchen is basically because it's the place where women have been told to stay for many, many years. It is also the place from which many women rule their families and do good things as unsung heroes without getting credit for it. So her kitchen deck of tarot cards, her cup is the Pyrex cup. And mine is not, hers is the green glass Pyrex cup that she got from her mom. This is my plain old Pyrex cup that I got from my mom. So it's the Pyrex cup, which is exactly why it's called the Pyrex cup. 8 of Pyrex cups in the kitchen tarot. So that is her quilt, and that is amazing, and I'm happy that we're ending on this, you know, very positive, uplifting note and hope for the future. And that brings us to the conclusion of tonight's Living Figuratively, the 50th golden episode. So hopefully you appreciated my Golden Girls intro, and if you don't, then now you know, because you stuck around, and that's your reward for the end. Next week, we are heading down south to Granville, Ohio for the Brindoo Art Show. Now, for the first time ever, it's not going to be the same back time. Remember, it's going to be next week at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So it's 3 hours earlier, remember that. But we're heading down to the Brindoo Show, which is juried by Lisa McClymont, who is an artist and activist. And fortunately, 2 of my paintings are on the show. It's my Persephone Kept and Left diptych, but I'm not going to be talking about that. I'm going to take you to see the other pieces in the show. And I haven't seen them yet myself, so it's going to be a little bit of a surprise. But remember to come back and join me next week, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Living Figuratively. Y'all come back now, will you hear?